Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about which two exercises I personally think are most important or the most useful for guys out there who are trying to get that classic physique look. And classic physique, we're talking Steve Reeves types, Reg Park at the most extreme, that sort of example. The physiques from the 40s, 50s, 60s. Again, that classic look, which is also known as the Apollyon look. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing. Work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Now, the thing that people need to understand, it's not that these exercises, some people are like, look, exercises aren't going to reshape a person. Well, they will when you put more focus on certain muscles than others, and you don't have disproportionate development. I'm not saying I'm the perfect example because I'm not even close. I am working in that direction slowly with what I'm doing, even though my focus is on strength. But I'm not using myself as an example. We're just using common sense in the way that muscles work and they develop in proportion. And that's what you need to look at for this. Now, people need to remember the reason I'm going to select these is because these exercises put the most emphasis on multiple muscles that tend to be weak links for people looking for that look. And they slightly de-emphasize muscles that people sometimes overdevelop. Because what people need to realize, oftentimes certain types of bodybuilding is push people in the direction of gaining as much muscle as possible everywhere, just gaining as much muscle and size as you can. That's not necessarily going to give that classic look. The classic look, the focus is usually on a thick upper chest, very wide shoulders, well-developed biceps, well-developed triceps, and full tricep, with a long head being well-developed. That's usually one of the big characteristics you see from those guys, is a lot of long head on their tricep, wide shoulders, wide upper back, big upper chest. All right, so with hopefully as small of a waist as they can get away with. Genetics, body fat are going to play huge roles in the waist. It just is what it is. And people do make the big mistake of thinking that lifting heavy is always going to make your waist a lot bigger. It's not necessarily the case. You still need a well-developed core. Now, we're talking only on the upper body. Lower body is another topic completely. But when you think about it in those terms, what muscles people tend to overdevelop? How about traps that are too big for the rest of their shoulder girdle? That actually is considered historically by even people who judge this stuff that excessive trap development in comparison to the rest of your shoulders will ruin that look. Too thick of a lower chest, like a lower chest that overpowers the upper chest, looks like titties. Again, they might like that in certain forms of bodybuilding, but it doesn't match the classic look. It doesn't match the classic look. So the exercises I'm going to recommend that I'm going to say are going to be most useful because of the multiple muscles they work are going to be any form of standing press and chin-ups. All right, and I very specifically mean chin-ups, not all pull-ups, although we could argue the neutral grip pull-up probably would work there too, but I mean chin-ups, underhand grip, so that the hand is supinated so the biceps get a large amount of the load. Now, those two exercises I've selected carefully to chin up specifically, but standing presses, people should just get as strong as possible on standing presses. And when I say strong, I don't mean your 1 rep max. People have these ideas that when you say strong, you mean cheating a weight up or your 1 rep max. No, I'm talking about strong. Using correct form, full range of motion, get as strong as you can on your 5 rep sets, your 8 rep sets, your 10 rep sets. Okay, that's what we mean by strong. Increasing workload. And I didn't even specify which type of standing press. It could be a strict press, it could be a push press, it could be behind the neck press, it could be standing dumbbell presses. But the point is the standing work works better for your overall development. All right, standing work. And there's been some data out there showing that when you stand, even when you're forced to use a lighter weight, you still get the same shoulder development, shoulder stimulation in the delts, everything else, even when you're forced to use a lighter weight than you would seated. And I'm also talking about doing full range of motion, coming all the way down, the barbell to your chest or the barbell to your shoulders if you're doing it behind the neck. And behind the neck isn't for everyone. The reason for this, standing presses work the core. They work your core very well. They actually work the full body. When you start doing them with push presses, particularly you start cleaning and push pressing or even cleaning and strict pressing, you're working a lot of different muscles. You're working your core, a lot of different muscles in your body. Standing presses will help facilitate better core development, which is what you're going to need. If you're doing enough work that's good for your core development, you don't need to come in and spend a lot of time working on your abs and core because you're getting it already worked. as strong stabilizers. Standing presses there. What all do they emphasize? Your entire shoulder girdle. Now, behind the neck presses work other parts more. The side and the rear delt a little more than the interior delt, in theory, depending on how you do them. But they work your whole shoulder girdle. They work your traps, but they work your delts completely. And a lot of people say, well, they don't work the side really, because there are plenty of people who do tons of standing presses of different types who have massive delts, who don't even do lateral work or anything for their side delts. It isn't always necessary. What people need to understand is that if you're doing various types of these presses and you're doing enough posterior work with your pulling, all of that has a radiant effect through the whole delt. All right, you are actually putting a fair amount of workload if you're from your cumulative volume. If you're doing high volumes of overhead pressing and you're doing high volumes of chin-ups, you are working your side delts quite well. Now, I'm not saying with these exercises these are the only 2 exercises you should do and that's going to give you everything you need. I'm saying they should be a heavy, heavy focus. For people who are chasing that sort of look, these exercises, they would do well to put a lot of focus and effort, prioritize them. It doesn't mean you have to do them exclusively, and that if you don't, that you shouldn't ever add some side laterals or other work if that's what you need to do to get the balance that you want, or even the strength that you want. I'm not saying these are the only things you should do, but overhead pressing should take priority over chest pressing. All right. Now, it also works a lot of other things. How about the upper chest? In fact, overhead pressing builds your whole chest, but it puts more focus on the whole upper chest. It will actually build your lower chest, just not to the degree that chest presses will. So in theory, a person who is worried about being too lower pec dominant, overhead pressing will prevent that from happening if you're using it as a primary exercise. All right, and it will completely develop the upper chest. You don't have to do incline work. If you're doing enough overhead pressing with a full range of motion, your upper chest, if you get strong on it and do a lot of volume on it, your upper chest will develop. Your whole shoulder girdle will develop. Your triceps, your forearms, everything will develop. It's a fantastic tricep exercise. Now, big point, overhead pressing does what for the triceps? Works the long head a little more than chest presses do. So you've got this medial head here, the lateral head, medial head, and then the long head. The long head's the biggest head. The long head doesn't get worked as effectively on weighted dips, close grip bench presses, bench press, all of that stuff. It gets worked, but not as much as the other 2 heads. Overhead pressing is a more balanced ratio. All right, so if you're doing mostly overhead pressing as a primary tricep exercise, not just shoulder and chest exercise, but tricep exercise also, again, if you're doing enough volume with it, you will stimulate very significant growth through your triceps, but it tends to work all 3 heads fairly evenly, unlike some other presses. All right, that's a benefit. You're making sure the tricep is getting well developed, and that long head, which oftentimes lags a bit, is getting worked. It's getting worked fairly well. So you've got an exercise now that focuses on those weak points, the whole shoulder girdle, the long head of the tricep, the upper chest, your core. Those are all things that you really need to develop maximally if you want to develop that sort of look. And it doesn't emphasize the muscles that tend to get overdeveloped. It can destroy that look with certain types of exercises, right? So you're getting a very, very strong focus on the things that you need. It'll help give you the wide shoulders, big upper chest, good long head of the tricep. Now, the other exercise, the chin-ups, that balances the other end of the equation. Chin-ups are noted in different studies to be some of the best bicep exercises. In fact, a person could develop very well-developed biceps using the chin-up as their primary exercise. In fact, even using chin-ups as their only exercise if volume and workload are high enough. Again, plenty of EMG data suggests, doesn't prove, but suggests that chin-ups are one of the best bicep exercises ever. All right, so you've got that to deal with. It works your entire upper back. One of the best upper back exercises ever created. That includes your lats, rhomboids, everything else. It works the traps decently well, not as well as rows and shrugs, but it works them, but it doesn't put a big emphasis on them being overdeveloped. Also works the rear delts. Very, very strongly works the rear delts, which again, anything that works the rear delts is also going to work the side delt to a lesser extent. So it's going to significantly add to your whole shoulder girdle development. It's going to add to your entire upper back. You can build a pretty good upper back completely off of chin-ups. And again, it's going to develop your biceps. very, very effectively. And what have we noticed in data? Chin-ups work your abdominals just as effectively as crunches do. So you're also getting crunches in when you're doing chin-ups. So that's one of the big advantages you don't get from any sort of pull-down machine, whether it's a lat pull-down or a hammer strength machine. You do not get the same abdominal development. So we now have two exercises that when combined together, it also works the long head of the tricep because of the stretch on it. If you're going all the way down and doing the full stretch, the long head of the tricep gets worked. Now, not as much as certain tricep exercises do, but it is noticeable, it's measurable. It will contribute to the development of the long head, which is usually your biggest lagging head if your goal is that specific golden era classic physique, right? Long head of the triceps getting emphasized. It works the upper chest, that's being emphasized. Works the entire upper back, rear delt, side delt to some extent. One of the best bicep exercises ever. So when you look at this together and you look at these two exercises, you are putting a very, very heavy focus upon what? Building biceps, triceps with a heavy focus on the long head, massive amount of upper chest development, complete shoulder girdle development. These two exercises, if you focus very, very heavily on them and put a lot of work into them, get strong on them, will develop all of the muscles that you are looking for, that you need them to be maximally developed, with other muscles not maximally developed, to achieve that specific sort of look. These two exercises are probably the two most valuable tools in terms of just efficient exercise selection for achieving this goal. In addition to that, they both will make you strong and athletic on top of it, which is one of the reasons these guys had a specific look. Most of those guys focused upon athleticism. That's what they cared about, with their looks being a secondary component and a bonus to that. They saw the two as going hand in hand. And interestingly enough, obviously these two exercises fall into that philosophy. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.